Afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our workshop regarding the Māori ward issue this afternoon. Could I please ask that we start with our normal karakia, please? Whakataka taho ki te uru, whakataka taho ki te tonga, kia makina, kia uta, kia mātarata ki tai. Hei aki ana te atakura, hei tio, hei hoka, hei hauhu ti, hei momo. Thank you. Welcome everyone, and good to see everybody here this afternoon. We have a number of organisations and people who wish to speak to us regarding the Māori ward issue, and that is why the process is a little more formal than we would normally have for a workshop, but obviously we need to ensure that everyone has equal time and the ability to talk to us. Just for those members of the public that are sitting in the gallery, we have only allowed 5 minutes per presentation, so just noting that we do have a lot to get through, and as I said, we do want to give equal opportunity to everyone. We do have a bell here, and I will be trying to maintain a timely manner in terms of those presentations. So if you could just keep that in mind, please, it would be most appreciated. Obviously, there will be probably some flexibility to the timetable that we have got listed to allow some people who have turned up early or need to leave or arrive later, so just be aware of that. So today is just a workshop. We are not making any decisions today. This is purely to receive opinions and views on the issue. Next week is our council meeting is the day that we will be making a decision as to whether we include Māori wards for the 2025 election or disestablish them. So with that in mind, our first presenter is actually going to be Samantha Hutchison. Welcome, Samantha. I'm not sure if you know how the process works, Samantha. There's a button, microphone in front of you that has the right hand one is the button that you push, and when that red light comes on, you are ready to go. Thank you.
Tēnā koutou, and thank you for allowing the opportunity to speak. I really appreciate it. I know that it's quite an emotional question, but I kind of wanted to, express the importance of this decision and the journey that we're having with our mana whenua partners in Aotearoa. Over time, we've begun to have much more honest conversations about our past, much more honest than the sanitised version that many of us were taught. And we've found ways to work more closely together. And one of those ways is the Māori wards. I do not want us to lose this progress. I know it's not easy. Democracies come in many forms, and ours are evolving in a space where we have a te tiriti. I would like us to continue to build the way we honour te tiriti and to work really closely with our mana whenua partners. Māori wards are every bit as legitimate as other wards. I'd like to recognise the patience and mana of our te tiriti partners who have continued to try and work in a system that is so different from their own. Please don't set us back and cause further damage to such important relationships, and commit to improving the ways we collaborate and work together. Please retain the Māori wards. Thank you.
Any questions at all for Samantha? Doesn't appear to be any. Thank you, Samantha, for taking the time to be with us today. Appreciate that and your interest in the matter. So, moving on, could I ask Pia Hana to come to the rostrum? Not here? Okay, Eugene, are you here? No? Shane, looks like you're up next. Welcome.
Kia ora koutou katoa. Taku mihi tōtahi ki I hoa nana nei na mea katoa. Nō reira he hona re he kororia papatūna ku raukarangi nui nō reira mihi ana. Ka mihi atua hau ki ngā tūpuna ki tua te ārai ki te whare o hini nui te pō. Nō reira moi moi, moi moi, moi moi. Ki ngā mate huhu o te wātua ki o te marama o te tau. Ngā mate katoa. Haere, haere, haere. Nō reira ngā mana whenua I tēnei rohi, tēnei te mihi ki a koutou. I ngā hapu, I ngā iwi, kei te mihi ki a koutou katoa. Nō reira ngā mai hara mai ki te whare nei, e te kaunihira, I ngā rangatira mā, tēnā koutou, mea tēnā koe, ki te kai whakahaere I tēnei whare, mani tēnā kōrua, I ngā kai arihi, I ngā kai tautoko, kei te mihi ki a koutou katoa. Kia ora, my name is Shane Royal. I hail from the great hapu of Ngāti Kikupiri at the Ohau River, and it's a pleasure to be here to have a few minutes of your time to talk about my support for the Māori wards. I choose not to sit because I feel better standing. So I was thinking about this when I was coming down here today, and I put in a letter of support that I believe has been shared with everybody. I'm not really going to speak to that part of it. What I'm going to say is that the two Māori ward representatives we have, I think have been, well, you all would know better than I, but what I've seen and what I know about them, I think they've worked quite exemplary, given that they're the first to ever be able to sit in that position. When we think about that, and we think about our treaty, you know, we're going back now 180 something years to have that be the first ones that sit in this role. And I think if that's the measure of advancement, then we're very patient people. To have that only happen now in my lifetime. I hope that this continues. Progress is about doing new things, being a bit more braver than the norm, taking that leap of faith and trusting that your treaty partner, and that's what these two are, they're treaty partners in this room, and my friend over here as well, that they are going to add some value and create a better community that we live in. Because each one of these ones, when they go back to their hapu and their marae, they're grounded in this whenua. They're grounded in all the cultural aspects of this land. They know all the tile like the back of their hand. That's part of the progress of the community. That's part of the intellectual property that they bring into the room that wasn't here before they came on. So I'm just staunchly supportive of it. I appreciate all the councillors. I appreciate that we live in a society where everyone's view doesn't have to be the same. I was told once that's how you get harmony. You don't have to have the same tone. Different tones make harmony. So here's the flavour that's in the room today, different harmony. And that's what creates a better community. And that's all I'm going to say. Nō reira ngā rangatira mā, ki te mihi ki a koutou katoa. I don't know if there's any questions there.
I've got a question for you, Shane. I can remember being in this room when we were discussing this for the 2019 local body elections, and Iwi Māori telling us that they weren't ready for the introduction of Māori wards. So what do you think has changed over the last 5 or 6 years that now make them, you know, really valuable and needed?
That's a good question, yeah. We are not always ready because we're not in control of where we've got to go. That's somebody else's voice that controls us, and we have to always be in reactive mode. What we're hoping that this will create is that we're not in that reactive mode anymore. We're part of the creation of what our waka needs to go. So, you know, we probably weren't ready when they came out, and there was confusion about what it was going to be. But now that we've seen it, and I think you guys at the table have seen it, because if this was an interview process, I'm only here just to give a character reference. But you guys have seen the work that these representatives have put in. I don't think well, going back to your question, Mayor, I don't think we're ever ready because we don't have the control of the narrative.
Cool. Thank you. Anyone else? Kia ora, Sharon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, next on the list with a bit of adjustment is Sharon Williams. Welcome, Sharon.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Sharon Williams tōku ingoa. I am representing Shannon Community-Led Development Group and have a role in Shannon as Community Innovation Navigator with Hāpai Te Hapori. We believe that Council is capable of making a decision about Māori ward representation and acknowledge that this current process has been imposed by central government. The unanimous decision made by Council in 2021 to establish a Māori ward guaranteeing representation for Māori voices at our local government level. Not iwi, not community, not elected members, not one single person stood or sat here in these chambers on the 19th of May 2021 and opposed this establishment. Elected members, you know best the value that this establishment of a Māori ward has created for council and district. Since 2021, council have and are increasing their engagement and relationships with iwi. As Councillor Justin Tamihana himself said at the Select Committee earlier this year, we have to work in a meaningful way with all our Māori respectively across our district. As part of the recent long-term plan process, Council consulted community regarding 5 core community outcomes, with 96% of responders choosing yes as outcomes submitters wanted the Council to work towards. One outcome being partnership with tangata whenua, including we will uphold Te Tiriti o Waitangi and its principles. The Waitangi Tribunal Urgent Inquiry Report released in May concerning the proposed amendment to the Local Electoral Māori Wards and Māori Constituencies Amendment Act 2021 notes in the summary of findings 6 breaches. Breach of partnership, breach of duty to act in good faith, breach of duty to actively promote Māori rights and interests, breach of the principle of equity, breach of the principle of mutual benefit, and breach of the principle of options. Especially noting the reinstatement of similar poll provisions, that's to the 2001 Act, that require binding polls only in respect of Māori wards and not of any other general or rural wards or constituencies is discriminatory, and we find it to be in breach of the principle of equity. Council intends a Māori ward to provide fairer representation of Māori tangata and to ensure greater Māori participation and input into council decision-making processes. This report notes that those councils who have established such wards have the benefit of Māori representation, perspectives and ideas at the council table, which will strengthen local decision-making. We respectfully request that Council, alongside the collective actions of other councils, such as Palmerston North City Council and Hastings District Council, who yesterday unanimously voted to affirm support of its Māori ward, petition the Crown to not require binding polls as a prerequisite for Māori representation. As Councillor Alan Taylor from Horizons Regional Council, who voted to retain Māori constituencies also yesterday, says, democracy has changed for the better. If we do not retain the representation from our treaty partners, it will be a 150-year step backwards. May we as a district always strive for equity and social justice. May we aim to maximise the well-being of all residents, and may we value the inclusion of Māori in decision-making processes as Māori across the district engage with council and are involved in council activities. We are proud that Horowhenua District Council established a Māori ward in 2021. We are proud that this was a unanimous decision, indicating that all residents are valued and respected. We trust that current elected members will continue this journey of striving for excellence, equity and social justice to maximise the well-being for all residents by retaining the Māori ward, petitioning the Crown and earnestly hope for another unanimous decision. Hey, Pātai.
Good timing, Sharon. Yeah, perfect timing. We do have a couple of minutes if there are any questions for Sharon. Appear not, and today is a day for us to listen, Sharon. You know, there won't be, obviously, but thank you for your considered and, as always, a well-articulated message. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
So we are running ahead a bit of time because a few people who had been set down to speak to us have not arrived, but so there is a bit of flexibility being applied to the list that we have. So next up, we know is in the room is Sally McLean. Welcome, Sally.
Yeah, kia ora. My dad always said if you can't get it on the back of an envelope, it's probably not worth saying. But I always have the risk that I bought a shopping list instead, so please bear with me. Thank you for listening to us today, and I'll be very brief. It's been my experience in life and at Play Centre in the Sandpit that if we have an opportunity to participate in the decisions that matter most to us, things tend to run more smoothly, especially if they involve the digger in the sandpit. So I think of the council as the digger in this conversation. As a ratepayer, I get to vote on who is on the council here, and I look around and I see I'm well represented by people I think are probably property owners. I think the Māori ward is vital in ensuring that tangata whenua have direct participation and representation in our council, and that helps contribute to a thriving and harmonious hora whenua. Direct tangata whenua representation helps us have robust and resilient decision making, and the Māori ward system goes some way towards meeting the expectation of partnership established in the Treaty of Waitangi. And I look around again and I think a lot of us wouldn't be here had that treaty not been signed 140 years ago. It's more than that now, isn't it? 1840. When I look out into the world, I see so much harm and hatred at the moment, and that comes from fear. And we've got a choice between fear and just being sensible. And it's sensible to keep the wards. And I ask and urge the councillors here to vote for that. And when it comes to having the representation to go out and, the referendum to go out and support the wards to our voters. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. Ken, any questions? Cool. Appreciate your time. Thank you. MTA. So, Wapuku Tribal Authority, who is speaking on, you're all speaking on, Dean, you've been handed the mantle, have you?
Nā mihi kia tātou. E hui mai nei tēnei ai. Rauranga tirama, ki nā pake ki rote te whare, nā mihi kia koutou, taku kuia, tēnā kuia Tivon. Koutou katoa, e mihi ana. Kei aku rangatira, kei nā marekura me nā whatukura, tēnā koutou. Kei a koutou, te kaunihira, nā mihi kia koutou. Me maumahara tātou mā te wunga, wainanui a tātou tēnei wā hoki ana i te whānau klaimi, taku tuahine ana i tīraha mai, takoto mai rā i roto te whare. Hoi anō, kia tātou, ki te kaupapa, nā mihi. Just firstly, I think it's apologies from our CEO, Tyrone, our kura hoki oi. Unfortunately, he isn't here to present our message, but I've been given that responsibility. And so I'm just going to, bear with me, I'm just going to read from my phone here. The MTA position of based and board hapu reps, feedback from members is that our members support Māori ward seats and anything that increases the voice of Māori and our people. However, we add, as we did originally, when the Māori ward seats were come to the fore, that it's critical that both ward reps and councils and elected councillors understand these seats exist to represent Māori population, ngā mātāwaka, interests generally, and cannot and must not replace the treaty partnership that is in place and the voice of mana whenua, tangata whenua, that relationships and perspective sits between iwi and the council, not just the Māori ward reps themselves. That's where our position lies, and they've asked me just to bring that short message and direct message to the board or to the council here today. Tēnā koe pa. Nei rā.
Dean, I'd like, would be interesting to know the views of, your views in terms of the voting participation of this country in local government elections is plummeting, if you like, in terms of across the country. It's not too bad here in the Orowhenua. By establishing Māori wards, what's your view in terms of how that is increasing participation by Māori in local government? Because it's all very well to have wards, but if only 45 or less % of the population is voting, then it does, I think, really sort of doesn't really give credibility to the representation almost of the table, because we're not even representing 50% of those that are, of the population, because there's a heck of a lot that don't vote. So how does Māori wards help, or help that involvement or that trust, if you like, confidence in what we're doing?
Pea, ko tōku whakaaro anei, ki tō pātai. Ko te kaupapa nei te tuakana teina. So my thoughts, just think, I think it's the older ones leading the young, but I think more for local wards here, if we can set an example here, that should spread nationally. If every ward is doing that, and doing it well from a hapu level, from an iwi level, from a whānau level, that's where it could spread nationally. I mean, we can't influence outside our rohe here, I think, as individuals, but as a collective here within Orowenua. If we do it well here, then it should spread further. And then if we can do it well as our tuakana, or our pakeke, and it's easy for them to touch those younger ones, because it's the younger ones that we need to, we need to set the example for them. And I think they're the ones we need to target, our rangatahi. Because that's the voice that's always missing, because they go off straight out of school, time to vote, and there's that gap there.
Thank you.
Kia ora rā.
Well, good. Thanks, Dean. Cheers. Thanks for arriving early, Ted. It's been beneficial because, as you see, we're quite a bit ahead of where you were scheduled to be. But welcome.
Kia ora tātou katoa. Thank you, Bernie. That's on, isn't it? Yeah. I think I'm the token old white male. So with that in mind, I'd like to also refer back to 3 years ago, and it was one of the people present at that meeting in May in 21, and saw the things that the lady from Shannon spoke about, and also took massive pride in my council voting 100% to support Māori wards. It was an absolutely wonderful moment. I was very proud. Since then, I've taken great pleasure in being at council things and seeing our Māori ward councillors present and contributing, and seeing how easy and readily that has happened, despite the inevitable challenges and things that people like Justin will always make. And that has been good for us all. Bernie, apropos your question a moment ago about representation, may I just say straight away that when you govern, when you facilitate, you do so for 100% of the people. It doesn't matter how many turned out to vote. You act for them all, and so the representation thing doesn't matter at that point. It counts when you govern. Why, in my remarks at the time, I didn't use arguments about te tiriti, and I didn't use arguments about legalistic things. I just said, please do what's right. I love it when my council does what's right. And I loved it when my council did what was right. When you think back to, I'm just going to revert back to being a history teacher, as I was a long time ago. When the treaty was signed, getting on for 200 years ago, with a handful of ratbag Europeans in Aotearoa, New Zealand, Māori who signed the treaty had no idea what was going to come. Nothing in the treaty, nothing that the coloniser said to them, including the religious part of the colonisers, warned them about what was to come. Hordes of people. Some concept about land ownership that meant nothing to them, even when it was explained. They had nothing to base that on. No concept of people using all sorts of trickery to get land off them so they could then own it. And have to go through the humiliation of having it partially handed back to them with conditions hundreds of years later. That, when it's happened in every nation of the world, has led to inequity. It has led to the trashing of culture and language, and difficulties in preserving a kind of a being, really. So whatever it is that we do these days is something to do with making that right. And I've jumped to another story. A friend of mine who didn't like when the Department of Social Welfare that I used to work in was asked to biculturalise. He hated that. So he went off and enrolled at Massey for a degree in Japanese, and was introduced to a gentleman from Japan who had a PhD from an Osaka university and came out every couple of years and addressed the students learning Japanese. And my friend bounced up to him and said how proud he was to go to a living language and do something modern. So the worthy gentleman looked at him and said, "Young man, I'll be back here in 2 years and I want to talk to you again. When you come to my country, you will see it operating on the values and systems and language of the indigenous culture of my land. I don't see much of that here, so I think your job is to make that happen." And he said, "I also heard you in some remarks you made earlier talk about how you want to celebrate moving towards a
a multicultural society. And he said something that I know to be true. No multicultural society works unless you get it right with the Indigenous people. What we're talking about here today is one tiny little bit of getting it right. It's working here. It ain't broke. Don't fix it. Please be a modern council. Please don't be yesterday's council. Be like the young people who welcome these sorts of initiatives. That's my request to my council. Thank you.
Thanks, Ted. Appreciate that. I don't think there's any questions. So, yeah, thank you for being here and putting in those views. Thank you. Catherine, would you like to join us, please?
Ngā mihi nui kia koutou, ngā mihi nui kia koe, Mr Mayor, fellow councillors. In particular, I pay tribute to our two Māori Board councillors today, given the kaupapa of today. I'd like to start my presentation, or my kōrero, with acknowledging our Auntie Carol McDonald. And Auntie Yvonne has asked me to also make sure that we remember Auntie Hannah Morton, who recently passed also. The reason I bring up Auntie Carol McDonald, and I will sit now, is you will remember, councillors, that when I came and did my submission in 2021, there were 5 of us. There was Auntie Yvonne Wehipehana Wilson, Mandy Fryer, Tikinahi Taylor, and Auntie Carol McDonald and myself. And what we asked for then was value added to this region through the council and representation of through Māori wards. And we say value added because these 2 seats allow this council to have a translation and a resource that didn't exist prior to these seats coming into existence in 2022. I'm not going to remind you of your obligations in terms of Te Treaty and the local government. It sits there as a remit and a mandate for you to operate in the first place. That I don't have to remind you of. What I'm going to say to you is I'm coming off the back of the Local Government New Zealand conference. I was reminded about localism and local government and how it adds value, and that it allows you to be connected to your communities where you weren't connected before. And these 2 seats that both, better say the right terms, Councillor Tamihana and Councillor Horetapa have added value to sitting at your table, mean that they were able, hopefully, to add value to your table by translating our Te Ao Māori view into your world view, which would allow you to make a more considered decisions at your table that impact on the wider Horowhenua district region. Auntie Carol was 86 years old when she sat here and she asked this council to support Māori wards. And I don't know whether the significance of an 86-year-old queer who was not of great health coming to this table and talking to this table about introducing Māori wards into this region. My 86-year-old queer, she sat here frail, and she asked because at that stage she had 5 generations of McDonald's, Wehipehanas, that sit in this region. And she wasn't thinking about her. She was thinking about all the generations that sit behind her and all of those who whakapapa to her. And so when I sit at this table, I could have asked many things today, but actually I'm asking this council to remember the words of Auntie Carol McDonald and protect those Māori ward seats, because the 5 generations that now sit behind her and the multi-generations that she whakapapas to across this region requires you to protect and allow this council to have a resource that didn't exist before 2021. And we know this political climate is challenging, and we know that there is a lot of noise that sits outside this region. But this isn't about other regions. This is about our communities that you serve. This is about each and every one of you contributing in a way that protects the legacy that Auntie Carol MacDonald has asked for. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou.
Thank you.
No pātai?
Apartheid?
Yeah.
No. Bernard, you're on. Thank you. Yep, no, don't turn it off. You just turn it off. Yep, turn it back on. That's it. Thank you, Benny. Kia ora, my name is Bernard Long. I'm a long-time resident of Waitariri Beach, about 40 plus years. Look, I just want to say I agree with the supportive opinions that have been offered by the previous speakers that I've heard. But what I want to do is to focus, or perhaps I should also point out on tau iwi, tangata te tiriti, but I want to focus on one particular example of the unique contribution that Māori bring to local government. I was a candidate in the Rangitikei electorate in the election last year, 2023, and as part of that exercise, I took it upon myself to attend local and central, local and regional government meetings. At a Horizons Climate Change Committee meeting, they were talking about the likely impacts of climate change on the Rangitikei area. Now, the experience that I'm about to relate to you has applications everywhere, HDC and in fact in all local government. But what astounded me there was that two local kaumātua were invited to that meeting by one or both of the Māori ward members to comment on the impacts of climate change. And what these two men, did was they drew on their indigenous knowledge and they said the tui in particular parts of Rangitikei are breeding at a prolific rate, about 1/3 more than they would normally. And in addition to this, there was a type of insect, I don't remember which, was equally breeding up big time, although reducing in size. And they were doing this because of the impending doom that they knew that was coming. And so these indigenous people cut through all our spreadsheets and science and were able to inform that group where the likely impacts were going to come. Now that knowledge, in all likelihood, would not have been offered if there were no Māori wards. The current attack on Māori wards and Māoridom in general, which is driven by some insane ideology, is just part of the attack on Māori. The tangata whenua, 20% of our population. I mean, who would want in their right mind a politician to annoy 20% of your potential voters? We will all lose if local government is dominated by middle-aged, privileged white men. Oh, all regards to you, Benny. That's where we came from, and that's what we'll go back to. So I ask you, I don't think I need to ask you to please vote to retain the Māori wards. I suspected in this group that that's what's going to happen. But the real fight will be next year,
when the referendum takes place. That's when those of you that are standing for council next year and those that might be coming into council, we will look to you to advocate for Māori councils and a yes vote, or no, whichever is the appropriate way, in the referendum. So I ask you to vote to retain Māori wards today and to be vocal on this issue for the whole of the year right up to the next election. Kia ora.
No, you're right. Thanks, Bernard. Just checking that there's no one in the audience that was wishing to speak to us. Because while we had our timetable had till about 2:30, so we are expecting maybe one or two more to turn up. But if there's no one else in the audience, we're going to take an adjournment until we see whether those other people turn up and wish to speak to us. So we just, so talk amongst yourself for a while. Welcome back, everyone. And we've got a couple more speakers who wish to speak to us. So could I welcome John Robinson to the table, please? So the button on the right's the one you need to push, John. Thank you.
Kia ora.
All yours.
Just a brief background. I'm just a random that came in, saw this on the internet, and I thought, this looks interesting. And I have the day off today, so I thought I'll come in. I didn't say I'd speak, but I did have some questions, and I'm luckily privileged, actually, to be able to speak to you. First thing I'd like to say is congratulate this council. I have been here 3 years living at Uho, and what I've seen you do, you've established Māori wards, and you're doing a pretty good job. So I'd just like to say that. The unfortunate thing is you are being mandated by a government that came in to abolish mandates, to put this out to the people of the communities to vote on whether there should be Māori electorates or not. Now, I don't see this as a democratic thing at all. I see it as a Crown-iwi partnership based on our founding document of this country, the Treaty of Waitangi. That is being forgotten. I hear a lot about democracy, and it's interesting also that this attack, and it is an attack on Māori, is coming from a party that got 8% of the vote. So that's not democracy either. So I would just like to support that the council to keep their Māori wards, because you have an obligation as a member of the Crown to do the partnership thing with iwi. My background is Irish. I'm an Irish Catholic, God help me for my sins. However, my mother, you could say, joined the diaspora. The Irish have been colonised for 600 years by the British Crown. Māori have only been colonised by the British Crown for a couple of 100 years. However, there's been a great lot of movement in the last 20 to 40 years, and what is being suggested is we go back to the 1950s and 60s, where Māori were not allowed their language, we stole their land, we put them into poverty, we thrashed their children at school if they spoke their language, and we've done a hell of a lot in that time to bring back what it should be like. There was a history teacher who spoke of, I don't know whether he's still there or not, but I wish I had that history teacher when I was in school, because there was nothing on the Treaty of Waitangi in history when I went to school in the 1970s. I had to do all the learning myself, and that is part of the problem. It is the obligation of the council to support this and to bring the truth of what has gone on in this country and to make amends from the Crown side, because that's why you have that .government.nz at the end of all your emails. You, whether you like it or not, are part of the Crown in partnership with Māori, iwi, because of our founding document. I have one question for you to consider. If, and it's possible, you decide to not keep the Māori wards, or we have an election, a referendum, and the Māori wards are thrown out, what is this council going to do to meet your obligation under the Treaty of Waitangi as part of the government to make Māori voice heard and to give them the rangatira that is required as part of the Treaty of Waitangi? That's really all I have to say. Thank you for letting me speak.
Kia ora, John. Thank you for turning up as a random. It's great that you are interested and keen to give those views. It's nice to have another Irish Catholic in the room. And can I just also welcome you to the district and thank you for moving here. You're part of the growth story that we have at the moment, and your endorsement of council is much appreciated. They're few and far between at the moment from the Prime Minister down. But that's, well, it's another story. Look, as you know, with the election in 2025, there will be a new body of people around this table. And that's what democracy means, that decisions that we make today can either be challenged, changed, or new ones put in that space. How we, as you've already heard, it was only a few years ago where iwi Māori were telling us that they weren't ready for Māori wards, and now we're in this situation we're in today where they're asking us to retain them. So, you know, time does move, and I've got no doubt that the political landscape after 2025 will be completely different again, and it'd be far from me to try and predetermine what that looks like. There may be one, none, or all of us still here next term, so we don't know that yet, but we'll have to wait and see. But thank you very much. We really appreciate you coming to give us those thoughts.
All I'd say is one thing that doesn't change is the obligation of council to meet their obligations to the Treaty of Waitangi.
Thank you. So our next speaker is going to be Robert Ketu. Robert, welcome. Do you remember what that felt like?
Yes.
Robert, welcome.
Well, I need to stand, ka nui te aroa ki o koutou. Kei raro te korowai aroa te tātou ariki. Tēnā koutou, kia ora tātou katoa. Hoi anō me Bernie, kei te mihi atu ki a koe, me ngō kairahi, me ngā kaunihera o tō tātou rohe, kei te mihi atu ki a koutou, tēnā koutou, kia ora tātou katoa. Thank you, councillors, for giving me this opportunity to speak. As you know, I wasn't supposed to be speaking, but however, you know, here we are again, being able to support our Māori wards in terms of the value that they bring to our community. I wanted to think about and tell you a story about my papa. As a 5-year-old tamariki, my dad, he used to take me up to the bush behind Shannon, and he was all forever hiding behind bushes, and he used to just thinking about that, he used to hide behind the bushes and then watch what I was doing as a 5-year-old. Obviously, you know, I'm scared, and I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm trying to bash my way through the bush. And he would come out from the bush and he'd say, "What are you scared of, my son?" And he says, "I can't see." And I want to say this to our council. You don't have to have physical eyes to see. And what my papa was trying to teach me, not knowing that in my lifetime, in my lifetime, I was going to be blind. And I say this to our councillors and to our community, that to have vision, you don't have to have physical eyes. And I applaud what our council have done in 2021 when you voted to include two councillors on our table at that time. And your vision to assist us as families, as hapu, as iwi, as community. You've had vision to be able to see that this is a good thing for our community. So that's the kōrero that I'm bringing from Ngāti Whakatere to this council, that you've had vision to be able to step into a place that was unknown to you. You've had vision to be able to see the value that our elected councillors, our Māori councillors, what value they bring to this decision-making table. And I wanted to speak about those sort of things. As you know, that we've been working with a number of projects within our rohe. And our councillors, along with all of our councillors, have been making decisions on some of the benefits that are coming to us as a community. I'm talking about Te Awaho. I'm talking about what's happening in Shannon. I'm talking about what's happening here in Taito. All of these things are because of the vision that you had to be able to see past and to be able to stand with each other to be able to bring value to us as a community. Hoi anō, tēnei te mihi ake a koutou, tēnā koutou, kia ora tātou katoa.
Kia ora, Robert. Thank you very much for coming in today. Yep. I'm sure it brings back some good memories, I hope, of other times that you sat around the table.
Yes.
And as you mentioned, being part of that decision that we made in 2021 as well. So, yeah, really good to see you. Hope you're well, and keep up the great work you do up in Shannon. Thank you.
Ora.
Okay, we have one more speaker to speak to us today, Susanna McFarlane. Welcome.
Thank you. Right. Oh. Kia ora, everybody. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. I'm Susanna McFarlane, and thank you for the privilege of coming and speaking to you today. I want to address all of you about my very strong conviction and opposition to the abolishing of the Māori wards. I live in Shannon, and it's sort of a Māori village, and it's vibrant and it's wonderful. And I've only lived there for 7 years, but I don't want to go. I love it there. And I'm very much in favour of the Māori wards. We live in a democracy, believe it or not, where representation for our Indigenous people is paramount to have the perspective of Māori to add to the governance of the Horowhenua district. I would also be in support of elected councillors from other ethnicities represented in our district too, because they all bring a quality which we don't have as Pākehā. I find it reprehensible that the minority group of votes at the last general election is now the tail wagging the dog. And I'm just unbelievable. To me, it's unbelievable that the attacks that are being made on Māori are, for a lot of the population, just run of the mill. They're not really that concerned. But for Māori, it's just the end of the world. I'm so supportive of their actions in standing up and making a stand to the government about the changes that are being forced onto them and to local councils to abolish the wards. Really, I can't add more to what the first speaker after the break said. He was very he had it all in a nutshell, and I get all tongue-tied and flustered, so I'm not going to add any more to that. But he was wonderful, and Robert, of course, was our local councillor, and he's a wonderful figure in our community. So I want to just say thank you again, and I hope that you will not abolish the wards and let there be a referendum, and then we'll see what happens after that. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Susanna. Thank you for making the time and the effort to come and talk to us about this.
It's my
Appreciate
pleasure.
it. Okay, that's it. All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here today to listen to those speakers. Appreciate your interest, and no doubt most of you will probably be back next Wednesday when we're making the decision. But we appreciate the input that you've given to us and make our decision making much more informed. Thank you.